Great, you can hold on to that. And we'll be entertaining some questions. I just want to make one comment, kind of follow up to Jan's mention of finding a mentor. Because if you're hooked up with somebody in an existing project or somebody who's really been there and done some good work in the area that you want to approach, that's huge. Because it gives the funders a sense of comfort that this will actually be accomplished, that there's somebody looking over your shoulder. So don't hesitate to reach out to people who you admire and who are doing work in the area of your interest, and get close to them, get the support, as Jan said, and really show that you have a team if it were to accomplish what you're proposing. That's really, really key. And it's going to make it a lot easier for you in all stretches, developing more contacts, additional funding, intellectual support, name it. So that's really key, and that's my only comment. And now I'd like to, Rebecca has one more thing.
I'd like to mention too that we have had some individuals come, at least to the Expeditions Council for Young Explorer grants, who have been declined the first time around, and they worked with us. So don't give up if you're declined the first time. They worked with us, and one of them became incredibly successful. He received a grant and then went on to produce this brilliant coverage of America's Bizarre Festivals. He worked with our photo editor. He developed a stronger application, and now he's in the process of trying to publish a book. But don't give up if it doesn't work the first time around. Aside from finding those mentors, just keep at it. That's part of the whole grant application world anyway. So.
And now let's hear what you have to ask or say. Is there a microphone for the audience, or are they just going to stand up? Okay. So raise your hand if you have a thought, question. Don't be shy.
Coming from someone with a really hard science background, I guess my proposal could either go towards the exploration or towards research. Would it be advantageous to write it towards research, taking advantage of my past, or is it okay to say, I've done this in the past, but I want to do something a little different and do a more media-based project?
Thank you. Absolutely. If you're interested in pursuing, a media-based project, feel free to submit it. Tim and Angie are receiving those preliminary applications. They consult when they come in, because some of the applications could potentially move over to the CRE or over to the EC when they come into, the different programs. And so there's an ongoing dialogue among them, and we make a decision about whether it's appropriate for one program or another. But also, your hard science background does not in any way prevent you from pursuing an Expeditions Council related project, which, the program does fund a lot of science-based projects, but they don't fit the mold of what the research grants fund, and they do have to have a very strong storytelling component.
Yes, I would add that make sure that you have a good story, because it is pretty competitive in the Expeditions Council. If your strongest suit is the scientific hypothesis testing, I would stick with that. You can always tell the story with us. So, make sure if you are going to the Expeditions Council that you have something that's, has a bit of drama, appeal, visual potential.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's Scott, right? Yeah, Scott took a social science course with me. So he has that too. No, I think it's really good if you, sometimes the creativity comes from shifting, shifting from hard science to media, or the other way. But you have to always articulate your credentials. Any credentials that are worth mentioning, you should mention them, because they tell us a lot about who you are, and especially at the level of these grants, you won't have a lot of publications, and you won't have a long track record. So we need to know as much as we can about you.
Another question?
While we're waiting, I've had another thought. One of you thinks of a question. That or like I'm a former teacher, I'll like point at you or something. Okay. Safety. Safety is a big concern. And your creativity thing kind of reminded me of this young woman, 20 years old, 5'2", blonde hair, journalism major, got very interested in the white slave trade from Spain, through Spain to North Africa, and was going to propose to take her video camera and her recorder and follow the trail. And we all looked at it and go, you are the trail. So needless to say, that didn't get funded. She kind of went on to rethink what her substantial interest was, and did come up later with some very good research. So safety has to be a key. Hiking through the most poisonously populated snake area of the world, that would probably not be a good one. But think through those questions. I mean, especially for marine stuff, there are areas where there are pirates. There are areas where there are bandits. And most of us are experienced enough in the field to know those things. And if you've done your research, as was suggested, then you'll know them too, and what you're going to do to deal with those situations.
Yeah, and I just to second that we have, at least from the Expeditions Council side, we have received a number of Young Explorer applications to do work in areas where we were seriously concerned about the safety of the individuals. And we really had to work through that with them with great care to ensure that they were going to be okay, that they had the proper assistance, local interpreters, and sometimes it took up to a year for them to work everything out. But safety is, needless to say, number one for anybody we fund, anybody who goes into the field.
Another question?
On that issue, I know there is a world-class rock climber and mountaineer in the room. Would there be a possibility for expeditions to like extreme climates? I know you had one in the Arctic. What are your limitations regarding, like, what is the actual, I guess if you're trained and you have people who are mountaineers with you, would that be an acceptable program?
So I'm not quite sure what you're hoping to accomplish in taking the mountaineer along, say, to the Arctic. What would your goal be?
To travel to a place that's like never been documented somewhere.
Okay, so you would need that person to help you get there.
Like,
if you have somebody, we fund a lot of expeditions. For instance, Pete will be presenting tonight on an expedition where there were scientists along who did not have the capability to climb these very high up cliff caves in Upper Mustang in Nepal. But Pete and a couple of his colleagues from the North Face had the skills, and they needed people who were the best in the world to get up there to these caves. So you want to build a team that has the skills that you need in order to do the work that you have to do. So yes, I would say absolutely, and if you can connect, sometimes we can help you connect with other young explorers. We've actually, through this program, seen a tremendous amount of partnering among our young explorers. We've connected them, or when they visited us, they've met each other, and they've gone out in the field and done a number of projects together. So if you need some information in that regard, we might be able to direct you to somebody who could work with you in the field, one of our other young explorers.
You had mentioned earlier about the importance of finding someone in the location you're going to work with. Is that something that should be established and the connection made before the application? And if so, how would you recommend finding those people?
at the, well, generally across the grant programs, it's required, basically, to have local collaboration. There are a number of reasons for doing that, but to get to your question, I think it's all part of your research. And if you aren't working with local knowledge and with local folks who help logistically and perhaps are most informed, you're likely not going to be as effective. And so that's some of your homework, basically. And the more that you can establish that you've done your homework, the better received your proposal will be. I don't know if anybody has anything to add there.
Just to make a comment, you know, we're talking about the National Geographic granting program, but a lot of these comments are applicable to National Science Foundation, NOAA, all these other agencies. They're looking for, you know, many of the same things. Probably a little, the only thing that differs is maybe the Expedition Council's focus on the visual aspects, but these are all advice to take to other grants as well.